I'm Aaron Lirette, the partner and executive chef of Heroes and ProBox. I'm originally from Chicago. I grew up kind of in a bit of a hard way, and I started cooking. I actually dropped out of high school when I was 17 and started cooking in kitchens in Chicago. And I just never stopped from there. Initially, it was just something I found that I was good at and a way to make money. And then as I continued to do it, I got better and better at it and kind of found a lot of fulfillment I kind of found my creativity and found that it was my calling. And I knew at a rather young age, it was something that I would be doing for the rest of my life. That's a great question because I've spent the later part of because I've been cooking for almost 25 years now, and I've spent the last many years trying to define what my voice is. And I think when you start cooking at a young age, and what a lot of people do is you kind of mimic, you kind of see what's out there, or you read books and you find inspiration through the titans of the industry and see what they're doing. And then you evolve from there through experience and travel and age and just doing things for a long time. And I think now I like to cook very much within the season. I like to source things thoughtfully. Not necessarily always have to be local, but for the most part, very locally sourced. I live by the Union Square Green Market, so I walk through it literally every morning. I feel like being an American and cooking in American fine dining kitchens my whole life, there's no such thing as tradition. We are not bound by tradition. We're not Italy or France and these places where this is the only way you can do this. I've never been told that in my entire career. So going to Italy, working with traditional Italian chefs, that was like one of the first times I was exposed to that mentality. I always knew it existed, but to be confronted with it in person, for me, it was always like there's no boundaries. If you see a boundary, you can push it or you can break it, and it doesn't mean anything. Tradition means everything. It's where everything comes from, and it's very important to understand where things started and to learn traditional cooking techniques. And a lot of my cooking is based in that. But as far as recipes and influence, I feel like with experience and age, you're kind of able to take certain things from certain areas and see what makes sense for you. So Chicago, especially at the time that I came up, it was always on the kind of the cutting edge of culinary. You had modernist cuisine was like, we were at the forefront, of this movement. And I worked in a lot of kitchens that didn't see that. There wasn't traditional flavor combinations. There wasn't like, oh, this is how you make cacio e pepe, or this is how you have to make this or that. There was no boundaries. So tradition was studied and it was learned, but it wasn't something that we held ourselves to strictly. And with that, I think you see innovation and you're able to kind of present things in a new way and look at things in a new way that maybe someone that isn't very traditional sees. And I have a lot of respect for chefs and people that do stick to tradition and make something one way, and it's because the way that, for whatever region that comes from is the way that it should be made. And that's really important that exists and continues to exist. But it's not necessarily how I cook. Yeah, I think when it comes to definitely the cooking of large proteins, I think it's something that I've always really enjoyed. I'm from the Midwest. I'm from Chicago. Cooking meats and large pieces of meats on open fire is something that I find great joy in. So I think for me, you see a lot of like sous vide of large steaks, or this reversed sear where you kind of cook something at a very low temperature for a long time till it's reached the internal temperature that you're targeting, and then sear it quickly to provide a crust. Where I almost do the opposite when things of that nature. If I have a 3-inch bone-in ribeye, I look at, I guess, what you would call progressive cooking, where I introduce proteins to very short bursts of very intense heat, and then pull that off that heat and let the heat distribute through the mass of meat. The heat's just energy, right? So that energy moves through the meat slowly, and then you do it again. So, for example, you can have a plancha or a very, very hot grill. You don't want to burn anything, but you're putting this, for our example, this giant ribeye on there for maybe a minute or two on each side, and then taking it off the heat and warm resting it for a few minutes, and then repeating that again. And what that does is that energy hits that mass of meat, and it really slowly distributes through it. And if you do it right, you get a piece of meat that really does look sous vide. And then you might ask yourself, well, why not just sous vide it? I don't like the texture of the way that the grain of the meat is compacted on certain proteins. And in addition to that, I prefer the really, really built up crust you get, and that Maillard reaction that just builds on top of each other with the repeated sears or chars. And for me, that's something that I've always approached large proteins with, and it's worked out just beautifully. Well, I think it's both. Like, we influence each other. Kenneth and I, and this is the one thing about like relationships that have built over time. We have a rapport with each other in a working relationship. You know, he's my work husband. You know, we spend a lot of time together, and we've worked together, I think, almost like 4 or 5 years at this point. So he really knows my style, and I really know his style with wine. So it's almost very easy for him to build a wine list with just, you know, me showing him a menu on paper even. He's like, yeah, I know what that's going to look like. I kind of get a really good sense of what that's going to taste like, you know, working with you for so long. Like, this is what this winter menu is going to feel like. This is what this spring menu or, you know, or this dessert's going to feel like. And we really just kind of feed off each other. So I think it's I hope it is for him fairly easy to kind of read where we're going, or see where we're going with the food, and build wine accordingly.